Hey there guys, I'm going to put these on so you can't see the sadness in my eyes. This is one franchise that started out phenomenal and progressively has gotten worse and worse and worse. And very quickly, before we go down that rabbit hole, I first want to share the sponsor of this video, and I assure you this sponsored segment will feel more like a Matrix movie than this newest Matrix movie. So I'll see you right after. This video is sponsored by Corey Krill Oil, the real life red pill with powerful omega-3 benefits. What if I told you, if you take this red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And also, if you take it, it's a natural powerhouse of nutrients and superior absorption that supports your best health. Okay, I'm gonna stop being Flick Pick Morpheus just for 1 second here, but when it comes to supplements, I'm a huge advocate because ever since starting to work out nearly a decade ago, yeah, it's been that long, I've tried so many supplements because my motto is, if you can take something that improves your health and your lifestyle, why not do it? These Corey Pure Antarctic Krill Oil supplements have a lot of health benefits, like they help support your heart, your brain, your joint, your eye, your skin, and your immune system, just for starters. Another great benefit is there's no fishy aftertaste. So, if you want to find out how far the rabbit hole really goes, definitely click the link down below, guys, in the description box to get a closer look at these and break free from ordinary fish oils. The link's down below, check it out. Now let's talk about Matrix Resurrections. This is a meta-nostalgic mess that feels like a parody movie the entire first act, but with all that said, I still love me some Keanu Reeves. And one of the biggest positives I can say about this film is, he still knows Kung Fu. This will be a non-spoiler review, so I will keep the synopsis as vague as I possibly can. There still exists a version of the Matrix, but things have changed. But what is this movie really? Well, it's a recreation of things you've already seen in past Matrix films, and they give you a convoluted story with a messy narrative for 2.5 hours. Now let's talk about the story of this film, and like I said, it is sort of a narrative mess at times, and there are a few good ideas that they sort of presented, but they never give them time to fully develop and grow into anything. The entire first act of this film is almost jarring to watch. I was sort of taken back because I wasn't expecting it to be this meta. It's written and directed by Lana Wachowski, who directed the previous Matrix films. During the first act of this film, it almost feels like some of the characters are voicing the real-life frustrations of the screenwriter and director of this film. There's one conversation between a few characters in particular where they're talking about how reboots and people love them, and how if you don't reboot a movie, you give up the rights to the studio to do whatever they want with it for future installments. And then they take it one step further and directly mention Warner Brothers, who is the studio behind the Matrix films. But with all that said, as much as I hate reboots, I actually think that would have been the better idea this time around. When it comes to the concept of the Matrix, it actually lends itself to be a rebootable franchise, and it could work. I'm not saying it would be better than the original, but I don't think it would be worse than this. So what does that all mean? Well, I can only speculate the director only returned to this film because the studio said, hey, we're going to reboot the Matrix with or without you, so you can either return and do what you want to do with it, or we're just going to do whatever we want to do with it. And the last thing I want to say about the first act of this film being so meta is it reminded me of other films that break the fourth wall, something like A New Nightmare or Last Action Hero. Also, the movie pokes so much fun at itself and becomes so overly self-aware at times that it sort of took me out of the entire concept of what the Matrix is in this movie. So by the second and third act of the movie, I was no longer invested. I was like, well, if you guys don't care, why should I? Now let's talk about some of the characters and actors in this film, and you have Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, but he is playing the new incarnation of Morpheus, and more or less he's just doing his best Morpheus impression throughout this film. The Matrix Resurrections brings back a lot of familiar characters, but they're played by different actors this time around. And whenever you see one of these new actors playing an established character from a previous film in this franchise, they do a quick flashback of that original actor playing that same role, and it instantly reminds you of how much better that original performance was. And I'm just glad they didn't recast the role of Trinity, played by Carrie-Anne Moss. But I will say her storyline felt very underdeveloped for the first 2 acts of the movie. And by the third act of this film, it's almost like they're trying to tell the audience, hey, hurry up and care about this right now, even though they didn't really take the time and develop it throughout the movie. So you don't really care by the end of the movie, or at least I didn't. And when it comes to her character, by the end of the film, she gives a few very cringy lines that feel so out of place. Now let's talk about the one himself, Keanu Reeves, the most likable dude working in Hollywood today. And when it comes to his performance in this film, it almost felt like he didn't want to be there. And also, one other thing to mention about him in this film, in previous installments, Neo is fighting and kicking ass and doing hand-to-hand combat. In this movie, he just sort of waves his hands around every once in a while, and it was really underwhelming. And if you've seen the John Wick flicks, you know Keanu Reeves can do practical live-action stunt work and kick some ass, so I don't know why they didn't utilize that once again this time around. The film also features Neil Patrick Harris. I don't know why saying that sort of makes me want to laugh inside, but either way, he plays the analyst in this film, a new character, and there's a sequence in this film where he gives a 5-minute diatribe of expositional information to the point where you're just like, I don't care anymore. And speaking of that, 60% of this film is expositional dialogue. It's almost as if the movie keeps answering the question, what is the Matrix? Well, we've already gotten that answer in 3 other movies. Why do you keep telling us? Mr. Anderson. Now, when it comes to the Matrix franchise, Agent Smith was a big part of those previous films. And I'm not going to spoil anything. I will just say what they did with Agent Smith this time around almost felt like a slap in the face. Now let's talk about the action in this film. And when it comes to the Matrix films, the action sequences are what really define some of those films. They're so iconic in the first few movies, the bullet time action sequences. And the great thing about those earlier Matrix films and those sequences, you feel something when you watch them. Because the story develops, you care about the characters in the situation, but not this time around. All of the action in Matrix Resurrections almost feels obligatory. It's like, okay, well, it's 30 minutes, we have to do an action sequence here, and then we'll just give you expositional dialogue, and then we'll do another action scene in another hour. Oh yeah, I did remember one scene in this film that I do want to talk about. There's a sequence that takes place in a warehouse where the good guys are fighting a group of almost zombies. I don't know what the hell these things were, and one of the guys is just like a French guy with a weird accent, and he's screaming the entire time about nonsensical things, and I'm like, what? It goes on for like 5 minutes, and by the end of it, it just ends. But with all that said, I do have a positive to mention about the final third act of this film where the climax goes down, and I sort of enjoyed the way it looked and the way it was filmed, because you have explosions and helicopters flying around on top of skyscrapers, and that was probably the best 5 minutes of the movie. Now, here are my final flicking thoughts on Matrix Resurrections. This sequel made me want to take a blue pill so I could forget this movie ever existed. And like I said, that first act was so meta that it takes you out of the story before it ever gets started. And once again, my speculation is the studio wanted to reboot this franchise, but the writer and director said, yeah, I'd rather just come back and do something myself. And that's what it felt like, sort of like an obligation. And that's how I felt 25 minutes into this movie. It was an obligation to watch and get through, and thank God I watched this movie on HBO Max at home rather than paying my hard-earned money to go to the movie theater and watch it. Just watch this movie at home with no pants on and enjoy your life, or just don't watch the movie at all. So here's my rating of the new Matrix movie. That's my Keanu Reeves impression in this. Yeah, it's not very good. Definitely a letdown to say the least. I don't know why this movie was made, and I don't comprehend how this movie got past test audiences where the studio said, okay, yeah, that's a good idea, let's keep going. Before I go, make sure you watch my latest video where I give a 17-minute spoiler review of Spider-Man No Way Home. That's a good time. As always, guys, leave your thoughts, your opinions down below. If you've seen the movie, what did you think about it? Or just tell me your favorite scene in one of the previous Matrix movies. I'm gonna take these off now, but as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe. That way, I can see you next time. Take care.